Hello and welcome to the 30th episode of the Bunker to Bunker podcast. As you can see now, or listen, I am riding solo for this podcast. I usually record these early Monday morning on the East Coast. However, the Genesis just concluded, so I thought that if I'm doing a solo pod, why not do it, instant reaction to everything that unfolded, because I think golf really needed a weekend like this. Obviously, some things happened that, golf and for fans wish didn't happen that we'll get into. But I thought this weekend was a big win for golf. Specifically the PGA Tour. Obviously, they got to showcase the Genesis Invitational, which is held at Riviera Country Club in LA, which personally is one of my favorite stops I think we have on tour. It's a good time where the week after the Super Bowl and, the only other sport right now on is the NBA All-Star Skills Competition Saturday night, and then today the All-Star Competition at 8. However, that's obviously a joke. So it seemed like golf had its spotlight. From what I saw, friends texting me on who they think is going to win, who do I have money on. So it looked like golf was kind of catapulting the golf, not just the golf world, but the sports world in general, in my opinion. And I think this is a big win for them in that the way that the last couple of tournaments, the PGA Tour has had, 1, bad weather, 2, a bunch of no offense, long shot, no-name guys that the average to below average viewer of the PGA Tour doesn't know. For someone like me, I love to hear those stories. However, not many people do. So having a, Patrick Cantlay, Xander Schauffele in the final group, you had Zalatoris, and then obviously Hideki coming back from 5 to 6 down to win with all the drama at the end and, up and down leaderboard, I thought was a big win for the PGA Tour, that they had the spotlight finally, and I think that hopefully they can ride this momentum. Obviously, the next 2 weeks. Next week is the Mexico Open, which we'll get into a little bit later, but that's a very, very weak field. The following week is the Honda Classic, but it's not called the Honda Classic. It's the, forget what the name is, but then you also have the Max Homa, Rory McIlroy match with 2 LPGA professionals who I'm drawing a blank. I believe one is Rosang. I forget the other. But, so I think this is what golf needed, honestly. And I'm happy that we got this finish, with Hideki just going berserk. I had a Zalatoris 60-1 ticket, which we'll get into later. But as I said, overall, big win for golf. I kind of wrote all this down and kind of logically order and kind of what was important, not that important, I guess. So obviously, let's start with Hideki. I kind of want to quickly summarize what he did, because I think if you're not on golf Twitter, I don't think you actually understand what he did. So to kind of rephrase this, Hideki Matsuyama was down 5 to 6 shots to Patrick Cantlay, who was to start the day at -14. Hideki shot a 62, which is, he becomes the first player in tournament history to card a 62 or better in the final round at Riviera. So, obviously, historic round. He had 4 birdie looks from 18 inches or closer today in the first 16 holes. That's what Kyle Porter tweeted out. So, he was throwing in darts. I believe it was 15 and 16, or maybe 14, 15. He put 2 balls to 8, or to 6 to 8 inches. Just unbelievable masterclass performance from Hideki from approach. He had some long birdie putts. He's not known as, he's a very streaky putter. So for him to do that and put up those stats, was really impressive. He just looked dialed in. Nothing could rattle Hideki. Some other stats from him is that, this is from Justin Ray. So players who shoot a 62 or lower in the final round to win on the PGA Tour multiple times in the last 40 years. Rory has done it 3 times, Jason Day 2 times, and Hideki 2 times. So obviously Day and Rory both major champions along with Hideki. So, I can read through billion more stats that, the best on golf Twitter and the golf community, has posted, but yeah, he just came out of nowhere. Like, obviously on TV, they showed like the, 4 or 5 guys near the top of the leaderboard, but you kept seeing like the coverage just show Hideki, like more, like, he's just climbing up, finally on that final leaderboard, and he just took it over. I mean, it was unbelievable what he did, and I want to go through his stats right now. And so Hideki was 22nd in strokes gained off the tee, 5th from approach, 4th around the green, 3rd in putting. So obviously at Riviera, you need to ball strike the course. You need to put it close. Obviously these greens are tough, so if you put it in the wrong side of the green, it's going to be a tough 2-putt. Obviously Hideki gaining 4.2 strokes putting obviously helps if he's playing to 8 inches many times. So for Hideki, who to start the year was very shaky, he's someone that I personally faded. He's a guy that I think I bet him at the Farmers and I think Sony, because his odds were like, at least at Farmers, like 60-1. And for a guy who's won the Masters, he's won big tournaments, he's won twice at Phoenix. So like, he knows how to win tournaments. He just wasn't in the best form. So he was 80-1 to win this golf tournament. And going into round 4, he was 150-1. So that just shows you the odds were against him to win this. Say what you want about a long shot. He was 80-1 to win this. We've seen all the other winners be 101 and above. So I'm not sure if we'll see what Golf Twitter says if 80-1 is a long shot. Comment below if you think that. But yeah, very impressive by Hideki. It's good to see him back playing great golf. Very volatile this year. And yeah, it's just a great performance by Hideki. But I did want to get into one thing that I just remembered. And it was, I believe it was 17. I want to try to find the video again. But so the broadcast also showed this too. But he had a video on hole 17 where he was chipping. He flew the green on 17 at the par 5, so he needed to get up and down for birdie to get to minus 17. I'm watching the video right now, and you can see that he was kind of grounding his club, obviously, near the ball, kind of just gaining a feel for the grass, for the tough rough that Riviera has. And you can see that the ball kind of it does definitely move a little bit, because he's touching the grass. It doesn't really seem like the ball really moves rotationally, or anything. I think that it seemed like the ball kept the same position, but the rough was just going back and forth, but the ball wasn't actually moving. They showed this while he was walking up 18, and I'm not really a big fan of these things. I guess they're just trying to cause some sort of controversy. it's like, so, like you have to zoom in so hard to like even see what, like, if the ball is moving or not. Hideki can't even tell, like what, if his ball is moving or not. Cause it's just so tiny. So I thought that was kind of dumb. I think Jim Nance or Trevor Illman was like, pick on someone else, which I thought was a pretty funny line. So that's kind of my monologue on Hideki Matsuyama. Obviously, we have a bunch of other things to get into. I thought kind of the second storyline of today was obviously, best friends, Ryder Cup, President's Cup partners. One of them was the best man at the other's wedding in last September, and that's Patrick Cantlay and Xander Schauffele. Two of these guys just both haven't won since, I believe, 2022. They just, Twitter loves to say, they just have no guts. They have no balls. They both looked lifeless out there. They looked honestly scared to, be aggressive at pins, to be aggressive off like the tee. It just wasn't their day. It's like they both feed it off their own energy. Obviously, these guys have played countless times on the PGA Tour together, countless times practicing money games, big stake matches at the Ryder Cup and President's Cup, and it kind of seemed like they kind of feeded off the energy of themselves, that they both played bad. I mean, they both came off with a par on the easiest hole on tour, which is hole number 1, and if you don't bury that hole, it's just so deflating, because you know that you just lost a stroke, or even maybe like a stroke and a half, because like that, the way that pin was, like you could definitely eagle that hole, so a par in their eyes is just devastating. And they, obviously Cantlay was hanging around just because he was the leader by 2, but he just couldn't get anything going, and it's just like, you start to question these guys that, these are two of the top 5 players we have on tour, top 5 players in the entire world, and it's just like, he just can't get it done. They just love finishing top 10, top 5, and that's it. I mean, it's really troubling, and I think they're both at the end of this gonna sit down and be like, what can both of them fix? Like, they're just the same player. They probably have the 2 most well-rounded games on tour, as I just said, and I think that, they're always going to be in contention at these tough courses, but they had to get over the hump. And it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back from this. Obviously, I doubt neither of them play in the next 2 tournaments, so Bay Hill in early March, which I'll be at, so stay tuned for that content. But yeah, Xander and Cantlay falling short is really no surprise, and I think they got to figure something out. They didn't have it. They looked scared. They looked like they just didn't want it, and the course beat them. It just simply did. So not good. I would say that stock's down for Xander and Cantlay. So if you understand that reference, hopefully you do from my Twitter. I think the next storyline is, and I think if Hideki didn't get the win that he had with a 62, if Cantlay and Xander didn't just choke, in the final round, I think that this would be more talked about today than the last couple of days. But like, Sky Scheffler, man, I think this is rock bottom for him with his putter. He just didn't have it the first time, multiple times this tournament, where you could physically see, mentally see his body language very frustrated with his putter. He threw his ball into the woods after a bad putt. I think he kind of like lightly threw his putter a couple of times. Very frustrated, looked like he wanted to break his putter. And I think it's interesting to see like how much longer can Scotty keep this up? That he's ball striking it so well, top 10 first tee to green this week. He was 51st in putting, so he was last in putting compared to the guys that made the cut. So this guy's literally one of the best golfers that just gets it to the green, and when he's on there with the putter, he just can't make anything. And it's interesting to see after this tournament, the way that I saw his frustration is that how will this impact him in other facets of this game? He's on a great streak right now from, ball striking, tee to green, but does that now mentally with the putter, hurt his ball striking? And I think if there's ever a time that he's not hitting it as well because of the putter, and he's just mentally exhausted from the putter, hears it from fans, hears it from the media, from everyone, I'm interested to see if at some point, he just can't keep it up. Ball striking. I also think that if you're Scotty, what do you do? He has been using the same putter, same model. I think he switched it a couple times, but he's been using a short blade putter forever. So we saw a Will Zalatoris, who had one of his best putting weeks ever, using a long putter. Zalatoris said that when he was injured, he saw Lucas Glover when back-to-back on tour with a long putter, he's like, let me give that a try. And we saw him today, had one of his best putting performances of his career. So if you're Scotty, what do you do? Do you keep your putter and you just keep trying to do it, or do you try to do a long putter, or the Bryson DeChambeau with the long grip that kind of sits on your forearm? I'm not no putting guru. I use a short putter because it's the traditional thing. However, I wonder if this is the breaking point that he starts to go to different putters. I'm not sure if that's really a panic move or not. He has 2 weeks to get that right for Bay Hill, which we know that he has won before. So I think these next 2 weeks, I would love to see what happens at Bay Hill if he changes his putter or not. I don't think my gut says he probably won't. I think it's in the heart of the year. Obviously, we're getting closer and closer to the Masters, that I think even though he's putting poorly, probably still is comfortable using a short putter, making that switch. I'm not sure how hard it is. I'm sure it is hard, but I personally haven't made, obviously I'm not doing that switch. But I think that's a storyline that it's building up more and more. Golf Twitter, we sound like a broken record, but I think it's really interesting to see what does Scotty make that putter change. Okay, so that was a lot. So kind of the big storylines to recap, Hideki 62 winning, Cantlay Xander falling up short again and again, and Sky Scheffler's putting woes. I think the next direction to go to is about Tiger. We had a lot of hype surrounding this week of Tiger not only just coming back, but he launched his own clothing brand with TaylorMade. We've all seen that logo. We've all seen the slogan, Sunday Red. He wore on Friday one of the shirts he wore at Riviera when he was 16, when he made his first start there. So that was kind of cool to kind of see that the history, he's kind of embracing that with his clothing line, which I thought is really cool. So this week was really all about Tiger. On the course, how does he look? he drove the ball very well. I'll say that. I think, he's obviously looks very well in shape for someone his age. Obviously, he's going to look not great with his walk. I thought it looked good, not great, but that's just who Tiger is now. His leg got shattered, so, he's never going to walk the same again, but I thought his first round, he looked obviously very rusty, but that's kind of what I expected. He shot a 1 over in round 1, so I wasn't really that surprised. He made a ton of birdies. I saw that his par 3 and par 5 scoring after round 1 was really good. It was like top 5 in both, I believe, but his par 4 scoring was not great. So obviously he needs to probably knock off his rust with his irons, kind of his distance control in tournament-like environment with the stress, the magnitude of a tournament. That just comes with playing a lot. We're only going to see Tiger a couple times a year, so I think it's hard for him to get those tournament practice if he's not out there. Obviously, the big storyline with Tiger was that he withdrew on Friday midway through the round. He was playing with Justin Thomas and Gary Woodland. I forget what hole it was on, but he was kind of told a tour official that, I can't play anymore. I feel too sick, and hopped on a cart and went back to the locker room to get, I think he got a IV in the locker room. He came out on Twitter and said that he had some sort of flu-like symptoms. He also was battling some back spasms. He said after round 1 that kind of hurt him, that he felt on the last couple of holes. So believe what you want. Flu symptoms. Obviously, I think the back had to do something with it. But he's saying that it was the flu, not his back, so we gotta take his word for it. But I think that it's just so hard to accept that this is the Tiger that is just going to be the same Tiger for the rest of his career. He hasn't played a full tournament since, I don't even know when. I mean, it's just kind of sad because, you see they have these highlights of him when he's 16 years old, 19 years old, and you just see that that's the Tiger that I didn't grow up watching Tiger. Obviously, I was born around then, but, I don't remember. I only know him as, when he was hurt in, 2013, when he won, and then, obviously, 2019, the Masters, and also, sniffing contention and a couple other, majors and stuff, but it's just really sad to see, and I think that it's just hard to accept that this is who, he is, and we're not gonna see him that much. But that's just Tiger. So I obviously expect him to play the Masters if he is not sick and his back can not have some spasms. I doubt he plays the Players. That's just my gut. I know he said that he wants to play it, every month. Obviously the majors are 4 months out of the golf season, but I just don't see him playing like the Players. I think he's just going to try and play the majors, but it would be great to see him out there at the Players. I definitely don't think he plays Bay Hill at Jack's tournament in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So that's kind of my time, my Tiger rant. It's sad, but this is just who Tiger is, and appreciate him being out there and him bringing buzz to the sport that we love, as many, hopefully a couple more times this year. Kind of my last point, this clip got a decent amount of views. A lot of people chimed in on this kind of debate, but we saw Friday after Jordan Spieth's round that it came out that he signed a incorrect scorecard. So on hole number 4, he put down as a 3, but he really made a 4, which is, from par to bogey. It came out that Tom Kim kind of wrote down poorly, and because he was keeping his score, and Spieth reportedly was also feeling sick. He was coughing a lot. He made double on the last hole, so there's a lot of emotion on that hole. And apparently he was in the scores table, just kind of signed his scorecard, left the scores table to go to the bathroom, then came back, and then found out that it was an incorrect scorecard. And what I believe is that once you leave the scoring area, it's final. So, say what you want. Kind of the debate is, why are players even using scorecards? We have it all on TV. These guys can't cheat. There's fans out there. You can't really cheat your own score like that with a scorecard. We're not in, a high school golf here. There's other people saying that, I think it's a good rule with the scorecard. However, he shouldn't be DQ'd, which I now, after I made that video and kind of having 24 hours to kind of make a stance on this, I think that obviously they're going to have their own scorecards. It's just a part of golf. I obviously write down my scores. It's everyone does it. However, I think that's kind of ridiculous for someone to get DQ'd out of a tournament because they made an honest mistake. But golf's golf. Golf has these dumb rules that have been in the sport forever. It's a easy thing. Jordan wasn't trying to cheat. Obviously, he just didn't check his scorecard. And what just came out on Twitter 15, 20 minutes ago was when Hideki won, Spieth said, he tweeted out, "Great playing, Hideki, just make sure you double check that scorecard." So, obviously Spieth is playing into this whole bit. I think he's going to brush this off. He has Bay Hill coming up in 2 weeks, which he's played well at the last 2 years. I believe 2 top 5 finishes. So, definitely a crazy weekend of golf where you have Tiger, the host of it, back for the first time in a professional PGA Tour since last year. Spieth, one of the top golfers, top, players on tour, DQ'd because of a incorrect scorecard. Then we had Hideki, who broke history with a 62 final round at the Genesis and won a signature event. So it was a big weekend for golf, as I said. I hope that we can, kind of ride this momentum and these storylines into the next couple of weeks, with some pretty big events in Florida. So we're kind of at the threshold of time, that went by that went by faster than I thought for doing. I've done a solo podcast a couple of times, so still trying to get used to just talking to myself into a camera. But I kind of want to highlight where I went right and where I went wrong. So I'm trying to use 2 names. I got Will Zalatoris right. I had a ticket on him at 60-1 to win, and that was obviously a great bet. If you look at his strokes gained stats, he was getting better and better every tournament. He was putting better, hitting it better, and I just thought at somewhere where he fits his course. He finished well last year at the Genesis. Elite ball striker, elite driver, elite iron player. His putters always held him back, and I saw his putting stats. Every tournament, it's gotten better and better. And I'm 60-1, this might be the last time we get a Will Zalatoris 60-1, which I believe we won't ever see him 60-1 again this year. And it's just awesome to see Will Zalatoris back, and, it's obviously he didn't win. He played well. Obviously down the stretch he kind of faltered, but he saw Hideki was up 2 strokes, 3 strokes, and he had to, attack those pins. So I don't really fault him for the way that he finished, but I sent out on Twitter. I was like, you need to buy stock in Zalatoris now. Even though I didn't hit the outright bet on him to win, I think I would take that as a win that Zalatoris might be back. Where I went wrong. Deadly wrong. People call me a homer, but this wasn't really a homer pick. I kind of tried to find a narrative to entertain, but I truly thought that Justin Thomas was going to win this golf tournament. Again, he has been one of the best golfers the last couple of weeks, especially since 2024. His approach numbers were there, and I watched PJ Tour live on the first and second hole. He went par, and then he duck hooked one into the fence, and his ball was up against like a wooden wall, which I guess is like the driving range, and you don't get free relief from it. So he had to hit the ball off the wood behind himself into the rough, then hit his third shot from the rough onto the green, and a 2-putt for a bogey. And right as I watched those 2 holes, I was like, he has 0 chance. I don't know if it's my friend CJ Rome always goes, JT was rattled by the crowds and Tiger. I don't know all the stats about how well JT plays with Tiger. Maybe I should have looked at that. Announcers said that JT doesn't particularly play well with Tiger, but he's so used to playing with Tiger. He plays with him every tournament that Tiger plays. He's used to these crowds. He's won 2 major championships. He's used to it. I don't know what happened, but that was probably one of the worst outright bets I've ever had. He wasn't even close. He missed the cut in a field where, a limited field, only 20 or so people got cut, and of course JT was one of them to get cut. I got burned in a one-and-done pool. The other one-and-done pool I took Xander, which he was top 6 in, so big win there. But I got JT totally wrong. I need to be better. It's so hard to bet golf outrights. All you kind of hope for is that your guy just is in contention on Saturday, on Sunday. Zalatoris gave us that. So, definitely a big win with Zalatoris, a big loss with JT. I went 4-1 on matchups. I went 3-1 on matchups. I went 2-1 on matchups I posted on Twitter, and then I took a couple others. So I went 4-1 overall. I lost a Scott top Aussie bet. He was like plus 120, which he was like T23, I think. So overall, fun week, profitable week with betting. The tour now goes to the Mexico Open, which is headlined by Tony Finau and Will Zalatoris, so they're really only 2 big names, and then it's everyone else. It's a very weak field, obviously, coming off a tough stretch of, we had Pebble, Farmers, Phoenix Open, and obviously the Genesis that concluded today. So a lot of tournaments that, even in the non-elevated events, it's a very good field for them. So this is obviously a down spot for the tour. I'll get into, as I think I said at the top, about, you'll find my preview stuff, kind of players I like throughout this week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are obviously my threads. So Tony Finau is the favorite. Who knows if Will Zalatoris will play? It just came out that Zalatoris lost a family member this week. Played through it. Very emotional after the round. So, thinking about Zalatoris, so, maybe he doesn't play. So it might just be Tony Finau and everyone else. So I don't have a deep preview now. I kind of wanted to get this out, my thoughts on the Genesis. But yes, stay tuned on all platforms. We're constantly posting out podcast clips. I'm posting threads on Twitter every day, just trying to punch out stats for everyone. You'll find out who I think can win. I usually post that on Wednesday, so yeah, hopefully next week we can get a guest on, or if Ethan comes back. But I'm definitely looking forward to the next couple of weeks as golf is ramping up. So I'll be there in Orlando for Bay Hill with my brother, so content in the next 2 weeks. So thank you for watching and listening to this episode of the Bunker to Bunker podcast, and we'll see you soon.